Did you know that permanent secretaries are the chief accounting officers in different ministries? Or in other words, they are the engine behind government. Now, in this analysis, I want us to look at how shrewd William Samoei Ruto used that opportunity to appoint, or rather to handpick, permanent secretaries in a plot that analysts have argued was technically used to create a zebra arrangement in every government offices. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bold Analysis, leading political podcast, leading informative political podcast in Kenya. And but I just need an update. I mentioned about US midterm elections. The House of Representatives, they do elections after every 2 years. So that is the one that was going on. Then Senate is 6 years. I really want to know how that election is done. And I think we will have to just tell people what exactly is happening there, because I was told it's not a must to vote with ID. Yeah, so you can tell us. And I hope the one for the Senate, the other areas are still going on. Different states, of course, not ones. So we're still following, and you can also tell us where is your state and have you voted. Permanent secretaries, there is a gimmick, there is a game. And let me tell you, President Ruto, I don't know if you want to call it sharpness, or is just being shrewd, or just being technical. I will take you through mind-blowing formula that was used to handpick the permanent, the principal secretaries to be that are going to work with the cabinet members. It's very interesting development, and by the way, when I just read it, I was like, wow, I think I had not seen it into this angle. And let me just give you a gist. Can you check every ministry, the CS and the permanent secretary? Just try to check, and you will find out something very interesting. William Ruto just had one strategy. Where there is a Kikuyu, the permanent secretary is a Kalenjin. And vice versa. Where the minister is a Kalenjin, the permanent secretary is a Kikuyu. Where? Well, I've always said one thing, that you can take away everything from President Ruto, but you will not take away the fact that he is a man who is always hands-on. Long-sighted, really makes very well-designed political moves. And let's go directly to that list. If you check Treasury, Njuguna Ndung'u, permanent secretary, proposed Chris Kipto. Transport, Kipchumba Murkomen, the permanent secretary is Joseph Mbugua. That's also a Kalenjin Kikuyu Zebra. Lands, Zakaria Njeru, who has been, in many instances, touted to have been given that role under direct lobby by Susan Kihika and Samburu, not confirmed. Permanent secretary, former Langata MP, Nixon Korir. Mithika Linturi in the Ministry of Agriculture, one of the permanent, this ministry have more than one permanent secretaries, not permanent, principal secretaries. Now in the constitution, they are principal secretaries. Harry Kimutai. Even Davis Chirchiri, it's also another ministry that have more than one principal secretary. One of them is Alex Washira. Simon Chelugwe, Patrick Kilemi, that is a Meru. Eliud Owalo, permanent secretary, John Tanui. And also look at that for Alfred Mutua, Sinyoe Korir. Did I tell you about, I think I had mentioned about even the deputy president's office. There was Julius Korir, Rigathi Gachagua. On the other side of Mudavadi, there is Mudavadi and there is Aurelia Rono, the former Bomet MCA and the Bomet lecturer. I can tell you that there is no office, mostly in terms of this ministry, majority of these ministries have traces, and these permanent secretaries and cabinet, these are visible. But then there is the visible, other leaders, other civil servants that are visible. I've always, I wanted to give, I really gave William Ruto some credit of a host of civil servants, especially seasoned principal secretaries that were retained in government. Because most of these people are the ones that really understands how government runs. But there is also a reality that there are ministries that have been given to greenhorns, people who their capacity is being doubted. So meritocracy at cabinet level, maybe, but I have a full, I am persuaded that the permanent secretaries, because they are the engine behind government, and William Ruto is really wants the legacy to be seen out there, really want to put out his scorecard in the next general election. I want to believe that in terms of ability for them to deliver, they're up to the task. But why do you think they went, or where do you think should Dr. William Samoei Ruto, and this one I need to call him Dr. William Samoei Ruto, decided to plant that strategy of Gema Kikuyu? That does not need magical science. We are all in this country. And President Ruto is just hands-on every ministry. That's what actually he was up to. And I buy that strategy because you are the CEO and you never know. There are voices of discontent. If you learn from Uhuru Kenyatta 1, that is when opposition was very vibrant with a lot of leakages from government. And it made opposition very vibrant because there are people that had just were in government with Raila Odinga, and then there was transition to Uhuru Kenyatta regime. But even though they were part of that government, they were never comfortable with everything. I've always said the people that gave Raila the Eurobond document were the people that were in government. Any other, even the NYS that was blown by Raila, the real whistleblowers were actually in government. And what I think the current president, William Ruto, is seeing, he's actually sealing the loopholes so that he makes government not become very porous. Because the porosity of government is what allows opposition politics to thrive. Opposition politics thrives on porosity of government of the day. Because everything that is happening, opposition wants to poke holes on everything that is happening within government. Now, if you have people who are there and they're not a little bit comfortable, that's what you see. So he wants to be hands-on. And from my observation, I think, Ruto learned a lot of lessons from President Uhuru Kenyatta. When they fell out with Uhuru Kenyatta, almost quite 3/4 of the cabinet fell out with him, simply because he did not have a say. And you never know. There can be a fallout between you and Rigathi Gachagua. There can be a fallout between you and Musalia Mudavadi. And you don't want a situation where you are isolated. You don't want that situation. So he's just holding everything. And from what I see, even though there could be backroom lobbying and maybe some of these speaks done in the spirit of a power sharing document, maybe between him and Mudavadi and Wetangula and all that, but at the end of the day, William Ruto sat down in some state house office in the corner and really knew what he wanted to do. From the day he was speaking cabinet, he knew what exactly, when I'm giving this ministry, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. So that Zebra Kalenjin Kikuyu ticket is there. And I want to put a disclaimer here. I am one person that I am not a proponent of this narrative that because our homeboy, because my person is in power, the whole community benefits. I'm not a proponent of that narrative because the real cluster different is in classes. There are those who have and those who don't have. Look at the way relief foods are being given. Look at everything happening in this country. In Nyeri, the majority of them are in government, but they are ravaging in drought or rather in hunger. Look at other areas like Machakos. Look at Nyanza, County. So I'm not that proponent, and that's why I'm not pushing it that direction. But it is true that there was that formula. Now, President Ruto wanted to doctrinate Kikuyu-Kalenjin matrix. This is what is most likely going to play out. The principal secretary is the engine behind every ministry. We understand that in terms of employment, PSC is public service is running the show, but there is also a chunk of an influence from these ministries. So there is a likelihood, and on this one I need to put a disclaimer, there is a likelihood that members of these two communities they will leverage on this to really get into some other places. The same way it has happened on the top there. Someone who is a civil servant, one can attest to this. That even if not directly influencing to get, but kidogo kidogo, you will find a sense of we belong here. And again, you need that because you need people to own that government. So that they wanted to institutionalize because that's the game. That has been the game of Kenyan politics. For anyone, if I get Kalenjin and Kikuyu, these numbers merged together, 90% humira, I am home dry. So, Ruto can easily suppress or lift any leader he wants. And I mentioned in my tweet this, who I asked, between in Uhuru Kenyatta government, Matiang'i emerged a super CS. Now, in William Ruto, who do you think would be a Matiang'i? My position was Musalia Mudavadi. But Musalia Mudavadi stands a chance to impress unless he is suppressed. So what is going to happen is this. This is what I'm saying here. That with the kind of arrangement that is here, Ruto will choose who to impress and who to suppress. To the son of Mdamba. If you try to show ambitions of taking over from William Ruto, most likely will be suppressed. I'm a bit worried because for me, I'm a proponent of Mudavadi, and unless something doesn't work. So with this arrangement, you are in a ministry, but hapa president anajua kila mtu. Kama CS ni rafiki yake, basi PS ni rafiki yake, ama wote. Which most probably ni wote. So what we are saying here is, if the ministry is like Mudavadi, Mudavadi's ministry is not specifically in a specific area. The roles are even clashing. I've even seen a very interesting one, by the way. Who is the minister of his internal security? Kithure Kindiki. But Gladys Boss Sholei, who is a deputy speaker, is making a comment on how the police should put on a camera. Is it the uniforms should have camera so that zinaweza shika everything they do. I listened to that and I was like, sasa si hata inafaa itoke kwa waziri, even though waziri said it before. But even before waziri, I saw a leader now, Sholei, commenting about the same. So that's what I'm saying, that with this kind of formula, Ruto will choose who is going to run the show where. Kama anataka Gachagua pande. And with this is very interesting because look at Labour CS Florence Bore. She's one that people have really argued that I read this story here that she might have been given that opportunity because of the Kipsigis stake in government. She's from Kericho. So there could also be pseudo layers of control within government. There could be pseudo layers. These pseudo layers, these are middle, middle stake, deep state, where even if you want to do something, you want to, a ministry is advertising, they want to supply some things, you want to give a tender, even though there is the process of evaluation and giving tender on merit and all that process, but there could be another layer that you need to be answerable to, or that can help, because government is about interest. Man. It's being read by people. It's read by people. These people are not robots. They also have interests. This kind of arrangement puts Ruto in control of everything, and because Ruto in control, he can even easily create pseudos that if maybe from this ministry and this ministry there is something you're doing, you need to consult person X before, because Ruto is not around every day. So I'm looking at this very critically. On many people have looked at it as the projection for 2027. I think if Ruto, because Ruto has successfully consolidated Rift Valley, if you ask me, I don't see Gideon Moi making a comeback. In fact, he was not even there. Even as a senator, he was not there. He's not making any comeback. You don't expect any magic. And with this, we are still going to see the trend of numbers is still going to be prolonged for some time. There could be attempts to disrupt it, but with the kind of arrangements, guys, I don't see a possibility of anyone still breaking it. And I have also said that it's not something that is ill. It's not unconstitutional, but the court cases that have been thrown to bring some injunctions before the vetting of these principal secretaries could have internal deeper pushes that people within these offices are not feeling comfortable, are even asking other proxies to head to court and challenge and to starve government of critical staff. Ladies and gentlemen, let's meet in the next. I have an interesting one from, yes, Uhuru Kenyatta, former president, one of our best, and let's meet in the next.